Welcome to Growing a B2B SaaS. On this show, you'll get actionable and usable advice. You'll hear about all aspects of growing a business to a business software company. Customer success, sales, funding, bootstrapping, exits, scaling, everything you need to know about growing a startup, and you'll get it from someone who's going through the same journey. Now your host, Joran Hoffman.
Welcome back to another episode on the Grow Your B2B SaaS podcast. In this podcast, we will discuss all topics related to growing your SaaS, no matter in which stage you're in. The best way to learn is to hear from other founders who already are at the level where you want to grow towards, the challenges they had, how they overcome those, and the learnings they have along the way. We will be talking to Stefan Smulders today, the founder of Expandi. They've been growing fast, especially in the first months. They went from 0 to 7 million ARR under 3 years. And the most amazing part for me was they did it fully bootstrapped. They also call him 007, which stands for zero VC money, zero paid marketing, and 7 million in ARR. Stefan has been sharing his knowledge already at big events like SaaS Talk, SaaS Open, and is actively sharing his journey on LinkedIn. We're more than happy to have him on the show today. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Stefan.
Much thanks, Joran. It's an honor to be here and highly appreciate this great introduction.
No problem. If people are not convinced to listen to you today after this intro, haven't seen you on LinkedIn yet, could you explain in your own words why should people listen to you today?
I try to be a great inspiration for especially early stage bootstrap SaaS founders. I walked the talk myself and I sort of built in public and share all my learnings and especially all my mistakes, as it looks now like an overnight success, but it contains years of grinding, hustling, failures, lessons learned, and I try to share everything as honest as possible among my journey.
For the people listening, I would definitely recommend start following Stefan on LinkedIn because he does share a lot. And this is, I guess, like one of the things I wanted to ask first about the failures, because a lot of SaaS founders want their project to run off like yours, right? Definitely not the case for everybody. 70% of startups fail in the first 5 years. How many failures did you have before starting Expandi?
To be fully transparent here, and I think it's for all the listeners quite an important question to know, as usually people aim for to share only the good things, right? And the successes that take off and the Expandi journey looks like an overnight success. It actually is the project itself, because it took off really, really fast. But it took me at least 8 years of lessons learned, failures. My first project was also with my current co-founder, Glenn. We tried to build an health app. We took 500k VC money and we burned it before we launched. So that was a pity one. I was, let's say, in my mid-20s. My first experience with driving and managing a business, and it turned out really awful. From there, I experimented a couple times with service companies. So let's say managed agencies that provide a managed service. And we were quite strong at some point, because one question actually kept me always triggered. And it was more that if a website has 100 visitors, how it could be that only 2 or 3% take contact. And somehow that question never let me alone. So it was the start of a side hustle from a project called Lead Express, where we built a similar software like your previous employer, Lead Feeder, where we could identify website visitors based on IP. I think technology-wise, we were maybe the first one who were able to build a liquid content and dynamic pages based on these IPs, but we actually only had a local database and we were not that much focused on the most important part. It was the data itself and to enrich it. So long story short, I think that was quite an interesting journey, but I also found out, due to multiple reasons, that it was more nice to have software for a lot of our users. And I think we pushed it to maybe 1,000 subscriptions as a sort of a side hustle, which became afterwards our main project. But at the end, all people wanted to engage with these identifications. And I saw some strange things happen, that people called to the reception and, "Hey, Joran, it's Stefan here. I saw maybe per accident some of your colleagues visited my website. Can you forward me to them?" I have no clue what you're talking about, Stefan. And then it ends up, and after a couple of times, they start blaming me as a provider. It's not working. It's not perfect for us. So yeah, I think I defined it more as sort of a nice to have software, maybe also due to the incapabilities over a rich database, a very small team, a side hustle. But especially that triggered me to think about ways to do acquisition on a much more modern way. So from there, I jumped on LinkedIn as a newbie, never ever used it for commercial purposes. It was the beginning of an agency where I helped C-level decision makers like yourself to do a better job on LinkedIn and book engagement and create engagement and book appointments. After managing an X amount of accounts with two left hands, one Excel sheet was running out of time, and I thought, let's be clever and search for ways to automate at least these repetitive tasks. And then from there on, 4 years ago, I stepped into a world which is called LinkedIn automation. Not even aware about what's going on there. Bit of a gray area at that time point, as there was a huge buzz around safety and people who want to leverage these tools. And on the other hand, nobody want to get in problems with LinkedIn. A bunch of crappy tools. I think we all used them in the past or leveraged some of them due to a lack of features. And I was stuck again in managing multiple accounts and one admin, not possible. Out of frustration, I shared it again with Glenn. And Glenn came up with a magical idea to just build the thing ourselves and build in all the features you need as sort of from agency perspective, or at least to manage more profiles seamless in the cloud with an intelligent architecture. So yeah, that was sort of the first footprints towards our Expandi journey. But that whole journey from which I just shared to at least 7-8 years before we started on the Expandi project.
And interesting, you both say they kind of come from a service background, right, or an agency background where you first helped clients and then you develop something. But it's interesting because you say you have 1,000 subs at the previous company, right? And like, how did you know things were going to be different with Expandi?
To be honest, I really felt as I was leveraging such a tools myself as an agency owner that if I could make it at some point, I found a tool which came sort of close at that moment to the beginning tool of Expandi. And I thought, I actually can't miss this tool. But if I can't manage my clients in this tool, then I'm stuck. Then I don't know what to do. So actually from that moment on, I was so confident that if I could make it better, it should be a huge demand for such a tool. From that moment on, very confident that it would be possible to take off and make a lot of people happy with it.
Yeah, it's going back to the term eat your own dog food. So make sure that you use your own tool. You know exactly what people are struggling with. I think that's the key here.
Definitely.
You're still bootstrapped?
Yes.
I mean, you've been growing fast, of course, which means is you have been selling a lot of subscriptions and money coming in. But how have you been able to stay bootstrapped like all this time still?
It was challenging, especially the time before we launched. As for example, we decided to put effort in this project from first quarter 2019. And similar as the story you shared before the episode, that if your coder says it will take an X amount of time, you can X3 it. And that was the same with Glenn's enthusiasm in that time. So he promised within 3 months we have a beta running, and in the meantime I was preparing all things for a beta pilot, and it took 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and we were only hiring some devs from our own money, and we increased our mortgages and to get some extra to bring some extra money on the table. So with extending it each and every month, it also became a bit of a more tight towards the moment that we needed to launch it, and we actually did not have the money to do it. I could not even think about traditional marketing or paid advertisements. And we wanted to launch it globally, as we found out in our beta that on the local Dutch market, it should not be realistically take off that well. What helped for us was that we had 300 beta users, and we found them on a cool way. As from our previous project, Lead Express, I was so confident that people really liked that software, but they were also struggling with best ways to follow up, that I thought, okay, some of our competitors, these customers, they must have the same experiences as we detected as a provider of an IP tracking software. So I used BuildWith. I scraped from SalesFeed, another Dutch IP tracking software, their customer base based on the tracking script. And I approached all these marketers from these websites with this approach to ask them the specific question. They all confirmed, and we booked, I think, at least 40 appointments in our beta using Expandi, full of bugs, but we showed that it worked. But then it took me 20 minutes to convince them that LinkedIn was the best channel to go to. I need to convince them another 20 minutes. Hey, by the way, you also can automate all these repetitive tasks. And then after I convinced them 1 week later during the pilot or the beta, they came back. Do you have a feedback on what to send as people not engaging? So I thought if we want to scale this here, it's impossible. So we did a step back, we analyzed the situation, and we concluded on the fact that we need to launch it globally. We actually need to find Stefans who were already in love with LinkedIn, who were using automation tools. But so we moved a bit in that direction. And to make that happen, we offered all these 300 beta users an annual subscription with a reduced price point. And additionally, to help them build sequences, which we used from our previous agency experiences. And around 60 of these people, they took advantage of that offer. So we gained around 55K, if I'm not mistaken. And that helped us to rent an office in Eindhoven. Before we were working in the garden from one of our co-founders with a heater, and it was quite cold when we started in February. And the extra money helped us to think and prepare some growth tactics to launch it on the global market. So fact as well, if it took 2 or 3 months longer, we were running out of money. That was 100% sure. So somehow these things came close on time together. And after we launched it, it was exactly on 15 November 2019 that we plugged in our Stripe account. It took off really, really fast. And I think within 4 or 5 months, we were break even. So actually that went really fast. So from that moment on, we always stayed profitable. And in the beginning, very, very lean. And we thought inexperienced founders that was quite good at that time point, and maybe it was somehow, but in the next growth stage we faced so much challenges by identifying that we and nobody in the team had skills or walk the talk before to grow it from a startup to a scale up, or to help make that transition. At that time point really well, and it helped us to stay profitable almost immediately. Became profitable, let's say it like that.
Yeah, really nice. And like especially in the early stage, because you mentioned Lead Express, or no, not before Lead Express, you took funding, right? And you burned that money pretty quickly. In that phase, I guess at the early stages, have you ever thought about raising funding because the money started to run out?
That question, somehow, I think if I analyze it, and I did it already a couple of times, I think maybe that mistake, or that failure, which emotionally felt really, really hard for me at my mid-20s, that I never wanted to put myself in such a dependent situation again. So maybe due to that happened, I think it triggered me that much to try to do everything possible on my own. So maybe that was the beginning of that it helps with that mindset to push it, bootstrap, no matter what, grinding, hustling, and keep going. So maybe it makes sort of a stronger mentality, and also the awareness of, okay, it's nice to take money, but what if it goes wrong? And I experienced both sides of running a business in my mid-20s with VC money, which was totally messed up.
Yeah.
And now without any help doing a bootstrap. But I think that experience created these insights and something I never wanted to go back to.
Yeah, in that case, it was a really, really good learning. So when we, I guess, like zoom out, what do you think so far has been the most challenging part of bootstrapping Expandi?
You should say it's maybe in the beginning with no money coming in to support your family, by extending and then working 8 months before we launched it on the project up until the moment we came break even. It took maybe 15 months or so from scratch to build, to launch, and to break even. So you should say that, and somehow it always felt, okay, that's really a tough situation with a young family and a very small kid, and not actually be able to support proper your wife somehow. But I think last year or 1.5 years ago, we grew up onwards to 6 million, and there we reached plateaus on different areas. I had no answers, I guess mainly due to the inexperience on my side and for my other co-founders. And actually from that moment on, to change all these things, it felt way harder. Then I was not even thinking anymore about the hustling, the grinding from the early days. To turn that situation around was maybe the most challenging from my side, especially as after analyzing the situation, I built sort of a list with 20 successful Dutch SaaS founders who were ahead of me, some who exited, and 10 directors of Dutch VCs just to share my story. And I think at that time point we made 300K net profit each month. And I really felt depressive. I had no clue what to do. I thought about quitting, mainly because I had no answers. And I never walked the talk from that stage. I found out I'm more early stage startup founder. I like to do things with the growth hack mentality. I was never measuring things. It was just my gut feelings. And most of the times they were in the right directions. And it was a small thing to adjust them and to took things off with experimenting a lot on that side. But after we became bigger, more people in the company, we needed to build in processes, structure, create teams, manage these people, and that were actually all the things I was not capable. I did not like it. I felt really, really worse. I wanted to escape. That was actually for me the hardest part, and it took really long to talk about company foundations, cultures, and of course we took some help to think about these things. But that whole process from starting to think about and hiring the right people, and if you're close to a hire that they took another job and that we did not position ourselves the right way, it's managing all these people, and yeah, it really definitely that part.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because you have 300K net profit, and that is the most challenging part. So it's not actual the money part. It's not even the growth part because you were scaling really fast, but it's more the things you've never experienced before, of course.
In my case, that definitely, but by far on number one, it's that. And then you get forced each and every time to step out of your comfort zones, to try to find solutions. People rely on you and on my other co-founders. So then you need to team up and you need to bring in the structures and try to contribute up until the moment that the people are there and that they sort of become self-supporting. It was a relief 1.5 years later, let's say right now, that we have such a great people in the company that I stepped sort of out of the daily operations, also to not mess up all these processes and things. And so for me also changed a lot, as now I'm building more the brand, try to become more visible, do a lot of things outside of the company, and that feels really like a fish in the water, and confidence to see that things keep running in Expandi.
Yeah, it's kind of like the hustling in the early days, but then in a completely different way where you can kind of just show your face everywhere, make sure the brand keeps growing.
Exactly.
But then processes are in place within the company itself, I guess.
Yes.
I think I kind of know the answer right now already, but if you could go back and do things differently, what would you do differently?
Yeah, we face in a later stage, maybe after hitting 1 million run rate or so, that processes and structures became way more important. Documenting things, creating clarity for people. In the beginning, everybody was wearing multiple hats. Way too many people were very flexible. They were grinding. They were working a lot, but everything relied on specific individuals. And with the knowledge now, I should document these things better. I should try to create a process, a clarity, map out an outline on a sophisticated way, what people need to do, what's their responsibilities. Yeah, that's one of the first things I should do definitely different.
Yeah, like really create processes from the beginning so people know exactly what to do. But again, you probably wouldn't do it too early as well, because that grinding part, that's of course really important to kickstart things, right? Or would you already put it somewhat in place at that time?
Yeah, it's sort of a chicken and an egg situation. First, you need to try to find traction, and then you want to get feedback on the things you've built, and then you want to find the right channels and scale in these channels if you get some traction. So maybe it's also sort of organic journey based on the speed and on the feedback and on the quality of the product that will rapidly change things, especially in these first 6 months up until a year. On the other hand, yeah, you're doing so many things yourself that maybe earlier start to document these things to be able to hand it over to other people. Otherwise, you very fast start creating the perception that nobody else can do it and that's impossible, only you can do it, and then it's quite hard to teach other people to do it, and then you keep doing it, or other people, for example, and then it's just a bubble and it's very hard to come out of it.
Yeah, and especially not only for yourself, but if people would leave, then you kind of want to have that knowledge somewhere. So if somebody
Yes.
else steps in, then they can take over without
Exactly.
having to figure
Exactly
everything
that.
out themselves. I mean, we talked about things you would do differently. What do you think has been the biggest driver for success of Expandi?
I think it's actually three things. If I break it down, we stepped into a market which was at that time point more sort of a gray area. It's by the way not illegal, not forbidden by law, but somehow LinkedIn, if you look at black and white in the terms of policy, it was they were not that amused with third-party apps on their platform, and there were already a bunch of them. So we joined quite an oversaturated market with tons of tools which were able to do at least a trick on LinkedIn. Maybe not all that advanced, but at some point, everybody, especially all our US friends, they wanted to leverage these tools because they were able to speed up things, they were able to make more money, they could reduce time efforts. And on the other hand, there was at some point a huge buzz around safety as some crappy tools, the most spammy ones they called, cracked down by LinkedIn due to some changes they made on the platform. And I think in reality, maybe a handful or a handful of people lost their profiles. But the buzz was, as it looked like 4 years ago, hundreds of thousands of people did that. So I took advantage of that buzz, and I thought if safety is the main priority and the most important thing for everybody, let's just pronounce ourselves as world's safest tool. And of course, we did some good jobs on building an intelligent architecture, making it cloud-based, working with these dedicated IPs. And in the beginning, I was just praying and begging that it did not fall apart. And I kept screaming and screaming, oh, we're the safest tool. Nobody can beat us. LinkedIn can't find us. I think that was one of the main drivers. Apart from that, due to the fact that maybe all these providers were sort of scared for Bill Gates that he should come there and spank all of them and crack their tools down. I thought if he want to find me, if he want to go after me, he will find me anyway. So it makes no sense to hide me. So let's just do the opposite and try to make myself the face of the brand and be always available and show that we are a reliable company that people can engage with. We provide the demos, one-on-one calls, and I think especially at that point of time, it was an eye-opener for people. Hey, it can be different. It feels really safe because, oh, there's real people behind the company. I'm not talking to an email address, to an avatar. I don't have to wait 2 days. They have a high quality, fast support. I think that is definitely second driver number two. The third one by far is that all these providers at that time point, they were only pronouncing on their sites 10x here, come leverage, use our tool, we 10x your results. But nobody was explaining how to do. So we started heavily with designing out of the box strategies to leverage LinkedIn and use them with real profiles, our own profiles in Expandi, and the best performing ones, we took them apart, we broke them down with the how, what did we exactly, the why, what were the results, which messages we use, how we connected the dots, the proof, screenshots from 40 appointments we booked. And we started to distribute these ones as playbooks. And because we at some point we became sort of the CNN from LinkedIn lead generation, and we gained so much traffic towards our blog and people appreciated it. And these strategies, these were really working so well because we got these results ourselves. So it was obvious that other people should be able to achieve close to the same positive results. That helped us without spending money on traditional marketing to drive with a lot of manual distribution. And in the beginning, they were not even SEO optimized, but we were doing posts on LinkedIn. We asked for a comment. We showed the GIF. We followed up on all these people to share the links. We did the small retargeting on it. We did it in Facebook groups where our audiences were. We did it, for example, on indie hackers with IP addresses we upvoted manually on Growth Hackers on SaaS. We wrote Quora answers every day, and all these efforts, because at that time point it was sort of a full-time job for a couple of people, included me, that distribution part, helped us to make that one of the main drivers of generating leads. And up until now, and it's now more structured, more organized, and way more better ideas behind, it's still our number one driver for generating new business.
Yeah, and I don't think you mentioned it yet, but I think like the biggest thing is here you're actually trying to provide value towards the end users. So you're actually showing them how to walk through your tool, how to actually get value out of it, without not always, of course, showing the tool maybe within the playbooks, but showing them exactly what do they need to do and then here's Expandi, here you can use us to do exactly this automated.
Yeah, and to stand out of the crowd, I understood really well that it would make sense to team up with micro-influencers, with top agency owners, which were our main audiences. So I try to become friends with guys like Rowan Chowbey, India's most followed growth hacker, with Houston Golden. It was at that time point, I think, together with Josh Fetcher. They were on the agency side, top notch, with Cosman's team from Sales Process, from guys. I try to become friends, partners, and I could always, in every conversation, mention, oh, these guys are using this. Oh, by the way, these guys are using us as well. Oh, by the way, these guys are. So behind the scenes, it created a lot of awareness, authority. I managed even to get Houston do a testimonial on our video testimonial on our homepage. I wrote ebooks with him on the cover, with Rowan Chowbey on the cover. So, but at that time point, that really helped us to establish a brand and to make Expandi sort of an authority in this gray niche as more an established company in comparing to the other ones, which were more suspicious and not transparent.
Yeah, because there was one question I wanted to ask you, as you now mentioned. I think we consider these more partners, right? Where they really helped you to grow and you leverage them. Like with Veritas, we built an affiliate management tool. Like how important have been like affiliates and partners for you really to grow Expandi?
Mainly due to what I just mentioned, to build up awareness, authority. We are backed by these big ballers, these huge names are using this. That's more from the micro-influencer and the partner side. Before we launched, we met our current CMO, Max, served a huge Russian-speaking online community with Ukrainians, mainly Ukrainians and people from Belarus and Russia, based on lead gen tactics, strategies. He became really, really fast a very important affiliate for us, which also himself made quite a decent amount of money out of mention Expandi and use it in the processes he shared with his audiences. So he was the first one, and I think until now we have hundreds of affiliates. There are a couple of challenges, but that's more tool related. It's always the hardest part if you don't have a dedicated person who is, how you should say it maybe with best words possible, who's on it to push it forward, because signing up for an affiliate, that's quite, that can be done within a couple of minutes, as you know, but motivates people to keep going and to provide them with the wide set of informations or deliverables. That's the second thing. But it's quite an interesting business model, especially as we paid out already hundreds of thousands of affiliate commissions so far.
Yeah, and I mean, what I like about it, and as you mentioned, it's an interesting business model because you don't pay anything out before they actually generate money for you.
Yeah.
So it's always cost per action.
It will be rewarded after the transaction in the subscription is made.
Exactly. We are coming to the end. I always like to ask these two questions. Like, what kind of advice would you give other SaaS founders in these two stages, starting with somebody who's growing to 10K MRR?
Yeah, I will keep it quite simple. I think right now at this moment, it's perfect time to leverage a personal brand, to build our trust, authority, to leverage your first degree connections. So to do that, I should host the LinkedIn events. And with all the knowledge you gathered until the moment where you are right now, you exactly know all the pains from companies like myself who are leveraging affiliate providers. I should think about talking them through these pains in a live event and follow up, boost it heavily by leveraging your first degree connections, which you actually 90% of the time do not approach anymore after connecting with them, and follow up on all these people after showing your expertise in a live session. I should think about lead magnets, where you show on a practical way how you solve pains, or especially more important, how you'll be able to make more money for them. And I should think about giveaway strategies. As your personal brand is growing, more people will opt in for that. And the ones which worked for me and still working really, really well. I hit 3 viral posts only in the last 4 weeks, only on LinkedIn. And I'm not even talking about Twitter, for example, but in giveaway strategy, I provide a lead magnet with pure value, with practical information and bombs people can use and leverage to make more money. I should focus on that. If I see what sort of attraction it gets right now, then only doing that should help you to get in phase of the right audiences you wanted to serve.
Nice. And when we take it one step further. So for founders who actually went past 10K MR and now growing to 1 million ARR, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Yeah, the mistake I made was from that moment on that I was not even thinking about the structure and the processes and not even working in a CRM. So I think if you leverage the IDs I share to reach 10K, you have a lot of opt-ins, you have a lot of people. You actually need to get them in your ecosystem. That's what you want, right? And to get them in your ecosystem, it can be with systems. So for example, a CRM or in sort of a marketing automation tool. To round up this question, to focus on building out a community, in a safe place to put people in your ecosystem, to ask a feedback, to experiment with different strategies, with tactics, to involve them in maybe features based on their input you're going to build or pivot with as a next steps. Simply by creating a community and implementing more systems which will help you to do a better job on systematic marketing approaches.
Nice, and that comes down to the processes you talked before.
Exactly.
You said lead magnets. We talked about a lot of things already today. I know you have a lead magnet which is called From Zero to SaaS Hero.
Yes.
Which people will definitely need to check out. Where can they find more information about how we did everything and documented everything in this ebook?
Maybe the most easiest way is that I share a link with you and that you add it to the episode, that people can pick it up from there straight away. And for the ones who got enthusiastic about my journey or want to follow me, hear more about my failures and learnings, I share all these things on LinkedIn. Stefan Smulders, it's my profile, and on Twitter. For the ones who want to leverage or consider LinkedIn as an interesting channel for lead generation recruitment, I should recommend to just go to our Expandi blog on our website, where we share pure value bombs and tactics and strategies and give people ideas on what you can do and how you can leverage LinkedIn these days successfully. So that hopefully gives at least some inspiration and ideas that it is way more than just sending a connection request and spam people with the follow-up messages to book an appointment, as that is currently not working that fine anymore.
No, I can definitely agree to that and relate to that. Thanks again for coming on the show. I guess any final thoughts before we close things off?
For my end, I think keep up the good work. I see you lately everywhere, so I guess working on your personal brand is taking off really well. Leverage that. Good to see you hosting such a great podcast, Jeroen.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I can definitely check off the one where I'm present everywhere and building the personal brand. Thanks again, Stefan, for sharing your knowledge. We will add all the links and everything related what we discussed about today in the transcript and in the show notes, so you will find everything there. Cheers, thanks.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Growing a B2B SaaS. Joran has been ahead of customer success before founding his own startup. He's experiencing the same journey you are. We hope you've gotten some actionable advice from the show. And we hope you had fun along the way. We know we did. Make sure to like, rate, and review the podcast in the meantime. To find out more and to hook up with us on our social media sites, go to www.getredditous.com. See you next time on Growing a B2B SaaS.